When we cut our first panel in, when we did our layout, spoke about layout, we talked about placing the panel rib in the center of our penetration. When I put it in the center and I measure out, that is 12¼ inches. So I want to cut my panel down 12¼ inches and turn a 1-inch tab up on the edge to complete the rake flashing. The next step of the process is to notch and fold the panel. When I say fold, I mean turn a 1-inch tab on the bottom of this panel. I'll either be notching panels to go left to right or right to left, and that's how they are installed. Looking at the display, I'm going to be running panels left to right. So when I take this panel and turn it over, see the next panel here will be installed here. So I'm starting on left edge and I'm moving to the right. So I know this is the correct edge that I want to put my hem onto. I'm going to fold 1 inch. I've got a 1-inch extended eave. Set that at 1 inch. And I'll place a mark at the end on the male edge and on the female edge. I'm going to be making a cut to go for panels that are going left to right. I'll be using a pair of lefts. I'll first put the snip over the edge of the metal on the female. I'll look straight down and make a cut straight down to the bottom of the hem, or the bottom of the rib. Cut straight across and fold. Once I make that cut, you'll see that there are 2 breaks. One break here, one break here. I want to make my cut right in the center of that break. So again, snips, cut straight through. I'll now notch this panel down on the bottom. Slight telescope notch each way right back to the point. I'll take that tab and fold it in. I'll go over to the male edge, and here I want to telescope my notch back. Make my cut in, turn up, and again I don't want to cut straight down, I want to telescope it in slightly. Pull that away. Now I'm going to use a hemming tool to turn the bottom of this panel. I'll take a 2x4, place it under the panel. That's going to give the metal stability. Slip the pocket over top of the tab. And I'm going to place all of the force right down on that edge. Give a nice crisp bend here. Now if I'm installing over an extended eave, I can install the panel as is. Hook it on and I can come back later with the hand folds and pinch it tight. If I'm going on an eave flashing that has an offset cleat, I'll take my square blade, place it in that hem, and again take cardboard so that I do not distort the panel, and just roll the panel tight onto the square blade. I still have extra metal here, and I can either cut it in place right now or do that after installation. The panel ends with a closed end, so the panel's hemmed and a closure on the end cap. 12¼ inches plus 1 inch. It is plus 1 inch because 1 inch is the height of the rib, the panel rib. If this happened to be, for instance, a vertical seam panel, I would turn up a tab 1 3/4 inches because that is the height of the rib. In this case, it's 1 inch, so I'm measuring 12¼ plus 1 inch, 13¼ inches is what I'll measure on the panel. I'll take a straight edge. Draw a line here. And now I'm simply getting rid of the hem and the extra metal that I will not be needing to make my cut through this panel easier. Once I have that panel cut, again, this is 13¼ inches. I'm going to turn up my 1-inch tab. The easiest method to turn up this tab is with, in this case, this is a Wuco bender. Melco also makes this product. This will turn this panel up, this edge up to 90 degrees, simply with the use of these die rollers. On this tool, there's a measuring stick. I'm going to set this at 1 inch. Tighten it. And then I'm tightened down to 1 inch. I'll simply place the roller over top the edge of the panel, keep it tight to the panel. And what I want to do is just allow the rollers, the dies, to do the work. What I don't want to do is force it up by hand. Just simply back and forth. That'll turn it up to 90. And if necessary, just tweak it with your hand folds after the fact. Once I've turned my 1-inch tab up on my rake edge, I'll then measure around this penetration and cut the panel tight around the penetration. Hook down at the end, 10 inches, up to the top of the penetration, 20 inches, and from the side, 7½ inches. And I'll have a raw cut in the front of the penetration, raw cut in the back of the penetration, and I'll turn a 1-inch tab up the side of the penetration, which is going to be a rake wall flashing. I've now got my finished panel. I've made my cut 10 inches up. I've got a cut 20 inches up, and I've turned a 1-inch tab along the rake wall side of the penetration. You'll notice that I've cut off the male edge here on the high side, and that is to allow a flat pan to sit over the back side of the penetration along the water to run along the sides. I'll hook this panel onto the extended eave, pull it up, make sure that my 1-inch tab is flush with the rake, and I'll place 1 screw on the high side. After the first panel has been installed, I can then take my measurements around the penetration and up into the valley to install the second panel. For instance, this lower measurement, 4 3/8, I'll measure off from the female side, and then I can take my tape, mark 16 at the low side, 16 at the high side, scribe a line, and take my measurements back so that I have tight cut of the panel around this penetration. I've transferred those marks to this panel and made the cuts as shown. You can see that I have a 1-inch tab which will hook onto the offset cleat in the valley, and I also have my 1-inch tab that's going to hook over the eave flashing. For installation purposes, it's important to have the eave tab slightly opened slightly more than the tab that's going to go into your offset cleat in the valley. Now, before I can install this panel, I'm not going to place double bead butyl tape on the top of the valley. Instead, I'm going to put tube sealant in the hem of the panel. I'll take this panel and I'll squeeze sealant into the hem. Once I have the sealant inside, I'll simply turn it over and I'll install the panel. Female edge over top of the male. Knock it all the way up so that you're tight against your offset cleat in the valley. I've installed a screw into the top of the panel to hold it in place. I've also run this panel by the top of the penetration by 6 inches. That's important. You cannot install a single panel around a penetration. It's always a two-piece process, and you always run your first lower panel up to the top of the penetration and then 6 inches beyond that point. If the penetration is 3 feet more wide and they want to use an image type panel, what is the process? The process installation would be identical. The only difference here is that my penetration is only 10.5 inches. Because of that, I can put a small flat pan behind this. Local building codes dictate to what width you must install a cricket, and certainly at 36 inches you're going to install a cricket. So you install a cricket on the back side, and then it's the same process. You just go up to the top side and add 6 inches, top side 6 inches, and you may have multiple panels in the front of the chimney, which is not a problem at all.